Alright, hello everybody. This is a Brics part 34. So I want to let you know this is the last Brics documents that I have, from peer review. So this is going to wrap this whole thing up, and I'm either going to move toward the tobacco health thing or, the Israel thing. Um, well, like, where history got messed up. I've been slowly putting some pieces together, about the Old Testament, and I wanted to put that in a document, but I'm not for sure which route I'm gonna go. Um, what seems more important at the moment? I think I might do Israel, because, uh, well, I'll get there. Um, so, um, and it's not technically Israel. I probably shouldn't say that. It's more about the Old Testament. Things that I've just kind of like put together that I've just kind of blown my mind away. But anyway, let's, besides that point, this is Brics Part 34. This document was probably created around 2004, so not too far after the creation of Brics. And likewise, this is peer review research, and the purpose of me showing this is to, um, just demonstrate what I believe is going on through all these peer reviewed documents. Um, and I'm not doing this verbatim. But I will be reading and just kind of finding what I think is interesting, and you can read along too. Um, but this is for research purposes. That's the main thing, is this is all for research. Alright, so let's get into this. Okay, I'm gonna read, so I'm gonna go silent a little bit. You see the title. Okay, so post Soviet, um, post Cold War, let's just say, the U.S. and the EU, their main interests and foreign policy goals were a desire to contain Iran, um, partly to keep control of these radical Islamic forces, and to prevent regional conflicts and assist NATO member Turkey, a critical ally in the area of top U.S. security interest, and to normalize its relations with China, whose military potential and alliance with Russia is perceived as a threat to its own security interest. Okay, so that's interesting. Right in 2004, something that I'm talking about, or I've been talking about, Russia and China going away from each other, and then this goes, whose military potential and alliance with Russia is perceived as a threat to its own security interest. That's interesting. So kind of keep that in mind. Um, but let's see here. Okay, Britain focuses on the Baltic states, France focuses on North Africa, and Germany has been focusing on Eastern Europe. Okay, interesting. Okay, so let's get through this introduction. I'm reading again. Okay. So this so far is mostly talking about the oil market. Okay. Okay, now I'm here. There's nothing new. It's just talking about the oil market, which could have to do something with Iran and the Middle East. Okay, the United States consumed in 2001 9.6 million, whatever that is, of oil and 2.1 TCF of gas. Okay. It thus has the highest level per capita of consumption in the world. It has also the highest per capita emission of the world. It is expected by 2020. Now, I don't know if that's where we're at. Um, so, in 2000, the United States imported 53% of its oil consumption, about one-fourth of it, from the Persian Gulf. It is expected that the U.S. oil imports will increase to 60% in 2020. I have no idea where that's at right now. But if anybody wants to look at those figures, go for it. Oil's not my main concern with this, but it's just kind of nice to overview like the concerns of the nation. My main concern is, how this relates to China and Brics. So, I have really no need to further research this. But a major concern for the United States in the last 10 years has been not only to secure adequate supplies of oil and gas for home consumption, but to diversify sources of supply. Okay. Okay, now I'm kind of wait, hold on. Okay, so according to the Bush policy, such regions like the Middle East should not be dominated by anyone except the United States. Hmm. Okay, now we're right here. Okay, so an important challenge for the U.S. Policymakers involved in making energy policy is to strike a deal between private sector interest and to secure energy supply to the home market and to achieve foreign policy objectives transcending the security of domestic oil use. Interesting. Okay, and then the case of Russia highlights the trade-off between profit-seeking and state policy. Okay, interesting. So a major obstacle right here in this second paragraph talks about Russia's influence and control over the oil and gas resources. And then also China and Iran are contenders for influence on decisions about location and construction of pipelines. Technology and capital are U.S. assets. Okay, so these two pipelines that they're talking about right here circumvent Iran and well, as well as Russia. I'm not quite sure if those went through. I think maybe they did, but like I said, um, this is just all leading up to what we're probably going to get into. Back to reading. Okay, so during these times, these were 7 of the conflicted areas. Okay. Probably going to be wrapping this up a little bit soon, but let's see if we can find anything very interesting. Okay, so most of this is talking about the pipelines and oil. So most of this surrounds oil right now. Okay, here's something important. During the 1980s, the United States armed, equipped, and trained Sunni Islamic forces to fight the Soviet army in Afghanistan. Amongst these was Osama bin Laden, now the United States' most wanted international terrorist. The United States welcomed the Taliban to power in Afghanistan in 1996. Okay, so let's see what. Um, so the United States was hoping that the Taliban could contain the Islamic Republic of Iran in the region. And also open a way for a centralized government in Afghanistan. Okay, so the US-based oil company Unocal provided humanitarian aid to the Taliban. Notice, is that an E right here? I think so. If it is, I always find it interesting how they change the spelling. Especially like how you see Osama bin Laden's name with a U, like around like 2010. I always found that interesting, and I think the Taliban is now like Talaban. I don't know. I could be wrong about that, but um, okay. A top Unocal executive stated, "If the Taliban lead to stability and international recognition, then it is a positive. I understand Pakistan has already recognized the Taliban government. If the U.S. follows, it will lead the way to international lending agencies coming." Interesting. Okay. So after the war in Afghanistan and the expulsion of the Taliban regime at the end of 2001, the Bush administration discussed the composition of the new Afghan government. Interesting here. Okay. So oil diplomacy and company interest. Okay. President Bush appointed Zalmani Ghazad, former Unocal consultant, as his special envoy to Afghanistan. Okay, I'm reading silently now. Okay, so basically the main reason for this new president was for a pipeline. So these guys right here are experts in the oil business, and make them ideal partners for oil companies in the United States to revitalize this project. Okay. Oh, whoops. Sorry, I fucked up. Hold on. I need to re-find my spot. Alright, I found it. Okay, so we were right here, and now we're going down. Hold on, so Bush has a long and personal relationship with Enron's former CEO, Kenneth Lay. Okay. Okay, 1 month after Bush became president, Cheney met with Kenneth Lay and other Enron executives. At that time, Enron stood to benefit from the Sent gas pipeline. Okay. The U.S. government has become an instrument of a segment of American society, corporate business. It has become, as others than myself have already recognized, America Incorporated. If a candidate today is not acceptable to the corporate mainstream, he is unelectable. Corporate monies determine national policy. Okay. You pretty much see that, right? Okay, reading silently. Okay, so right here, the objective of U.S. policymakers is not only to obtain oil and gas from the CEA, but also to control the flow of oil and gas in the West and in Southeast Asia markets. Okay, and the U.S. economic interests are combined with strategic interests to weaken Russia and Iranian influence in the region, which, as we can tell these days, this right here has backfired. Um, so Bush getting into the Middle East, you know, those documents that I read were right because after that we ended up getting in the Middle East. I think us getting into the Middle East after reading this back during after 9/11 just kind of in the beginning it may have weakened these two, but I would say maybe by around 2004 it started to embolden these two because soon Iran was going after a nuke tech and Russia was building themselves up. But we're going to stop here today while we bring all this together. And so next time we're going to go with the military connection. Alright, that's where we're leaving off here. Um, so, let's see, next Monday, no, we will continue this the Monday after next. Next Monday, I'll be doing a poem. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this Brics video, part 34. I will see you next Monday. And down in the description below, my novel, Reborn, The Days of Earth. I will leave the link to this down below. You can buy it on Amazon. I would appreciate it. I plan on having 3 more novels following this coming out this by the end of this year. That's my goal. We'll see how well that goes. I believe I'm doing well to accomplish that goal. But other than that, this has been a Brics Part 34 production. And I will see you next Monday.